If you're curious about surrogacy or about to start your first journey, there are critical things that you need to know, from lifestyle adjustments and medical qualifications to financial planning and what to expect emotionally. If you don't go in prepared, you could run into unexpected challenges that slow you down or even disqualify you. So in this video, I'm breaking it all down. The lifestyle, medical, financial, and emotional factors, all that you need to know to consider before applying. And I've seen it all. I'm Angela Mook, a 6-time surrogate and co-founder of Alcea Surrogacy. I've helped guide hundreds of women through their own journeys over the last 20 years, and I know exactly what it takes to qualify and get the most out of this incredible life-changing experience. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and let's get into it. First, I'll be answering these questions as if you were going through an agency. I'm obviously biased, but I think it's important to have that perspective because if you choose an independent journey, you'll be responsible for advocating for yourself. All right, let's talk about lifestyle. The most common questions we get surround bodily autonomy. Can you choose your own doctor and hospital? This answer is a little bit of a gray area, but most of the time the answer is yes. Occasionally, you might match with an intended parent that has a very specific need for a level 3 or level 4 NICU or higher, something that you didn't previously deliver at. But this is something that you'll talk about in pre-match. And if you're only comfortable with working with your doctor and your hospital, we can find you intended parents that would also be comfortable with you working with your doctor and hospital. You will continue to maintain your medical autonomy throughout the life of this process. How does birth planning work as a surrogate? Really, birth planning is going to be a collaborative process. You, your intended parents, our social worker, the case managers, as well as the hospital staff will work together to formulate a plan that is suitable for everyone. Something that respects both your autonomy and the ability for your intended parents to enjoy the birth of their child. Do you have to have any kind of special diet or exercise plan as a surrogate? The answer is no. In your pre-match process, what we're going to do is talk to you about what your current lifestyle habits are. Do you currently prescribe to a certain kind of diet? Do you have a regular exercise plan? If the answer is yes, we will match you with intended parents that have that expectation. The example that I always give is this. If an intended parent came to Alcea and requested a vegan surrogate, we wouldn't go to our surrogates that are carnivores and say, stop eating animal products for the duration of your surrogacy. We would find them a vegan surrogate. Surrogacy should work organically and integrate organically into the life that you already live. So, some intended parents want a strict diet. We'll match them with surrogates already attending to a strict diet. Some intended parents don't care, and in those circumstances, there would be no diet restrictions. What's most important is that this is all discussed and decided prior to the match, so that going into the journey, everyone is already on the same page and has the same expectations about health and wellness activities. Can you travel while you're a surrogate? The answer is sometimes. You will have some travel-related obligations for surrogacy. There'll be a couple of times that you actually travel to your intended parent's IVF clinic to fulfill the obligations of the process. Throughout the duration of your journey, you will have some restrictions. As you get close to delivery, usually around 30 weeks, your gestational carrier contract, or the contract that you have signed with your intended parents, will specifically dictate how many miles away from your home base you are allowed to travel from that period forward, because the legal parentage that you have with your intended parents is only valid in the state in which you live, and we don't want an accidental birth in another state or too far away from your home base. So the answer is kind of. You can travel up to a certain point, but there are certainly restrictions while you're fulfilling the obligations of being a surrogate. When it comes to international travel, the answer is unfortunately no. Simply because we don't know what kind of laws and other overlays might happen for the surrogacy process outside of the United States. Throughout the duration of your contract and your obligations under being a surrogate, you cannot travel out of the country. Can you have sex while you're a surrogate? Well, the answer is kind of twofold, and it depends on whether or not you're a partnered or unpartnered individual. First and foremost, surrogacy should be safe. So anyone that you enter into a sexual relationship with needs to have STI or sexually transmitted disease as well as FDA testing. So that means your partner is the person that you are getting tested for this process, and it's the only person that you can have sexual relations with throughout the duration of the process. If you're an unpartnered person, anytime you introduce a new relationship into the equation, before or prior to any kind of sexual activity, they would also need to undergo the same tests. So the answer is yes, but with some caveats and with some specific criteria. In addition, there are certain times during the pregnancy where the IVF clinic will give you a restriction on not being able to have sex at all. Typically speaking, this is going to start when you begin your medications, and it will go all the way until the time that you have a confirmed pregnancy after your embryo transfer. But please know, this is actually an IVF clinic protocol, and those instructions will come directly from them, and they will also be included in the contract that you sign with your intended parents. It's incredibly important that these are respected, not only for the health and safety of yourself, the health and safety of the baby, but also for the parentage process. To sum it up, when it comes to lifestyle, surrogacy should organically fit in your life, and you should be able to participate and do the things that you normally do. There might be a few things within your legal agreement, as well as your relationship with the intended parents, that might cause you to alter a few of those things, but all in, everyone should be respecting your autonomy throughout the surrogacy process. And to be clear, there are no questions off limits with me. Recently, someone asked me if previous body count would be an issue, and the answer is no. On the medical approval side of surrogacy, there are a lot of things to think about. The entire process end-to-end takes between 4 and 12 weeks. You're going to start with basic background and financial services check. You're going to request medical records for your prenatal labor and delivery care. A doctor and a nurse are going to review those records. You'll undergo a psychological evaluation, as well as informed consent, putting together your profile, getting your matching choices together, and understanding your current medical insurance. All of this will be closely aligned with someone on our team as we walk you through this process, but it's a little bit intense, it's a little bit intrusive, and it's a little bit laborious. So be prepared to be asked a lot of questions and to be on point to answer those questions, because you cannot move forward to matching unless you're safely screened as a viable surrogate. Some things that would automatically disqualify a surrogate candidate would be someone with a criminal history, someone that has struggled with drugs and alcohol in the past, someone that did not have healthy pregnancies, those with a higher BMI, people without a support system, and those that would be relying on surrogacy compensation to keep a roof over their head or food on their table. All right, let's talk about money. I want to be extremely clear. Yes, you can make a life-changing amount of money as a surrogate. However, it is not quick and guaranteed. You could be approved, never achieve a pregnancy, and see minimal money. Most of the compensation does not begin until a pregnancy achieved, and then you're paid in monthly installments. It is not all upfront. So how much can you make? You can make approximately between $80,000 and $120,000. The variability here depends on if you're a first or a second-time surrogate, because the more times you're a surrogate, oftentimes the more compensation you can ask for. You'll get both a base compensation and an extras package. The base compensation begins when you achieve a pregnancy, and the extra package is there to accommodate and give you little incentives for things that happen along the way. Things like when you complete medical clearance, when you sign your legal agreement, when you start your medications, when you transfer, and things for maternity clothes. Again, they're spread out over major milestones of the process to ensure that you're being compensated for the wear and tear on your body, the time away from your family, and never for a baby. I think people that don't respect that surrogates should be receiving monetary compensation don't truly understand what goes into being pregnant. Most importantly, no one is owed a baby. Surrogacy is a voluntary process. At the end of the day, someone that is able to give a sacrifice of a baby to another family deserves monetary compensation because the risk to them and their family is so incredibly vast. I get asked all the time about what surrogates do with their compensation. The top 3 answers that we hear are: number 1, paying off debt. We all know it's been a bit of a tough time financially. A lot of people are still trying to recover from COVID. There are a lot of other things going on in our climate. And so being able to pay off credit card debt and start fresh is something that we hear surrogates often say they use their surrogacy compensation for. Number 2 is buying a home. It's very difficult right now as housing prices are surging, interest rates are high, and owning a home feels out of reach for so many Americans. And a huge amount of our surrogates tell us that they save their surrogacy compensation to put a down payment on a home. And then the third is to take a vacation. I know that seems like an arbitrary thing, but for a lot of people in our country that are living in a way that they are paying just their bills and they're able to, do everything they need to do in life and they're stable, they just can't do the extra things, like maybe take their kids on a nice Disney vacation or to the beach or doing something that's fun. And so surrogacy just gives them a little bit of a cushion or a safety net that they don't otherwise have from the employment and the current income that they have. Let's talk about the emotional aspects of surrogacy. And be forewarned, some of this is a little heavy, so skip if that doesn't feel comfortable to you. I need surrogates to understand that this is the most intimate thing that you're ever going to do with someone outside your own partner or family. The same goes for intended parents. Imagine the enormous amount of trust and sacrifice that an intended parent has to have in you for you to carry their child, when obviously the most ideal situation for them would be that they could do that job themselves. You have an enormous responsibility to be open and honest about what you're looking for in your intended parents, because once you're pregnant, you have no recourse. Talk to your agency about what you're looking for. Do you want someone that is supportive? Do you want someone that is involved? Do you want someone that is looking for a relationship? Or are you coming at this more from the mind of a business transaction, an uninvolved intended parent, someone that's really just looking to have you have their baby? Neither of those are wrong answers, but one is politically correct and one is not. So together with your agency, you need to be open and honest because, believe it or not, they're intended parents that also want those different kinds of relationships. In addition, surrogacy is emotional because sometimes it's not always safe. Let's be honest. A traditional pregnancy comes with risks. Now you have additional risks with an IVF pregnancy and the complications of the legality of surrogacy in a really difficult political climate. Yes, you're going to talk about things like termination, for example. You're going to talk about how most surrogates are open to the intended parents taking that opportunity to make the decision and be the ones to independently decide to end the pregnancy. But we get questions all the time about why intended parents might make that decision. Will they do this willy-nilly? Will they do this for no reason at all? And I'm here to tell you no. Think about all of the emotional and financial aspects that go into an intended parent choosing surrogacy. No intended parent is deciding to terminate simply for changing their mind. No intended parent is looking to terminate simply because they no longer want a child. Intended parents that are choosing to terminate for the very same reasons that women have to make those tough choices for their own pregnancies. They are things that are anomalies. They are things that might have conditions that they are not prepared to raise. So all in all, you are involved in, again, one of the most intimate things that happens only for someone else's family. The emotional aspects of surrogacy are heavy. There are a lot of things to think about, and it is critical that number one, you're open and honest with your agency, that number two, you have a good support system. So when and if any of these things happen, you are able to navigate them with a trusted source and someone that you have in your corner. And number three, that you work with an agency that is not looking to cut corners. You need to be crossing your T's. You need to be dotting your I's. As I said, this is important and it is not the time to ever take things lightly. It's emotional, it's intense, and it's something that you should only embark on when you feel ready, prepared, and supported. So yes, surrogacy can be emotional, but as someone that's experienced surrogacy 6 times and has been through 9 embryo transfers, I can tell you that while there are emotional aspects, surrogacy is absolutely one of the very best things that I have ever done in my entire life. And let me explain. I'm actually sitting here talking to you because of surrogacy. Not because of the compensation, not because of the money, but because of the relationships and confidence that I built by being a surrogate. When I met my first set of intended fathers, the people that I carried all 3 of their children, one of them said to me that the entirety of his life he was scared to come out because he was afraid that he would never be able to have a child, and that the only 2 paths in front of him would be to be childless or marry a woman in an inauthentic relationship and have a child with her just to become a father. He hugged me and he cried, and he said, I never thought anyone would be kind and gracious enough to give me my dream. It was in that moment that surrogacy truly changed my life. And finally, the last couple I worked with. This is a couple that had been through 8 miscarriages. They had been working for 6 years to have a baby. They'd tried every treatment, every supplement, every doctor, every situation, and had almost given up on ever having a baby. When my intended mother walked around the room, around the corner, I should say, and held their baby for the first time, I literally saw years of pain and sadness melt from her face, and she became a mother right in front of me. She didn't carry that child. She didn't feel that baby kick in her belly, but she was a mother the moment that she held that child. In addition to helping all of these families, the lessons and the compensation led me to have a confidence in my skill set, in my ability to give to others, and most importantly, in my ability to lead with empathy. It made me a better employee. It made me a better friend. It made me a better partner, and ultimately led me to open Alcea. So I'm hopeful that after learning all about surrogacy, you know it can be done safely. You know it can be done ethically. You know that the compensation can help your family, but most importantly, it can change your character and change your life. If you do think you could be a good fit, click the link in the description to learn more about how your surrogacy journey could start. And if you're curious about what the experience is like for someone currently going through it, check out the video where Laura and her husband share everything. All right, time to check a few more spicy DMs.